£3,800. That is a lot of money for a camera. What I wanted to talk about today is, do you need to upgrade your camera? Now, 2020, October in particular, has seen a lot of new and exciting camera releases from Sony, specifically the Sony A7siii, which I guarantee you will see every YouTuber pretty much under the planet, all your favourite influencer YouTube content creators are going to be using this camera. Now the problem is, it is no doubt a great camera. However, if you are just starting out, or if you have less than 1,000 subscribers, is there any need for you to upgrade your camera? And I believe the answer is probably not. Reason being, this is a super expensive camera. I'm going to show you a couple of alternative things that you could buy with that money that is going to take you a lot further in your filmmaking or YouTube career, that get you really kitted out for the same price as that one Sony camera body. Let's have a look. So let's talk about some of the reasons why people are so excited about the release of this camera and have a look at some of its specs. But before we do that, we have to run some errands. We are going to the post office to pick up a parcel, so let's do that now. So the trip to the post office was a complete failure as it was closed, so no parcel today. However, we are talking about the A7siii, and one of its biggest selling features is probably its sensor, which is a 12 megapixel sensor, making this perfect for low light work, as it has an extendable ISO range from 40 to around 409,000, I believe. This thing practically sees in the dark. It certainly sees more than the human eye can see, and I think this is probably the biggest appeal of the camera. This opens up a lot of shooting opportunities for the camera, as you can basically film anywhere without the need for supplemental light, which makes this the perfect vlogging camera, combined with the flip out screen, which is another bonus of this camera that has not really been seen before on the A7 range. So that is going to be a big appeal to a lot of the higher end or bigger YouTubers on the platform. So that same sensor is capable of shooting 4K at 120 frames per second and Full HD at 240 frames per second. That means it's going to be a slow motion beast, combined with that low ISO. You know, you can boost your ISO in order to compensate for the higher shutter speed that's required to shoot in slow motion. So this is going to be a big appeal for anybody shooting B-roll or any kind of low light action that requires slow motion. It's also going to shoot 10-bit colour at 422. That means the image that you're going to receive from the camera is going to be perfect for colour grading, because there's going to be so much more information in the colours compared to previous models with an 8-bit sensor, where the image will fall apart a bit quicker. So if you're shooting log on this camera, you will be able to colour grade that and push it in different directions that might not have been possible on, for example, a A6000, 6300 level camera. On top of that, this camera is also going to shoot 16-bit RAW files if you are using an external recorder such as the Atomos. Now that just opens up a whole new level of editing, because you will then be able to change your white balance. For example, if you have been shooting in fluorescent lighting and forgot to change your white balance, you can do that in post, which is massive for saving your image in post. So there's no denying those are some absolutely amazing features on this camera, but those features do come with a downside, and this is probably why I would not recommend this camera to beginner YouTubers or anyone looking to buy a camera specifically for creating content for YouTube. It's just overkill. Now the reason being that if you're shooting RAW or using the 10-bit codec and the 422 colour, you know, the file sizes are going to be absolutely massive, and that is going to very quickly clog up your hard drive. You're going to definitely want an SSD drive to store and run this footage, especially through your editor, whether that's Premiere Pro, Final Cut, DaVinci Resolve. These programs are all going to struggle with this kind of footage because it is just so memory intensive due to the file sizes. Now you could work with proxies, but again, it's just another step that's going to slow you down, and all that footage takes time to convert to a proxy in the first place. Your storage on your computer is very quickly going to fill up, and you're going to have to factor in buying extra memory to store this footage, and that will add up pretty quick. Memory is fairly expensive. Standard hard drives, you can get them relatively cheap, but to edit this you're going to want an SSD drive, which are not cheap. And then there's the computer to think about. You're going to need a lot of RAM, a lot of processing power, good graphics processor, all that stuff just to run this. So if you are running on a fairly basic or even a mid to high spec computer, you are still going to struggle with this footage for the most part, especially if you're trying to produce regular content. On the topic of storage, I should mention when shooting on the A7S3, to use some of the features you will need to be recording onto the new CFast cards, and a 128GB card is going to set you back around £240 for one card. That is a lot of money to pay for a memory card, so bear that in mind as well if you're thinking of buying this camera. Some of the features won't be available unless you're shooting onto that kind of card. Another thing to consider if you are considering upgrading to the A7S3 from something like the A6000 range of cameras is some of your lenses might not be compatible. Some of them will be compatible but are ultimately designed for those smaller APS-C sensors, and you're not going to get the full benefit of the camera, or the lens for that matter, if you use them on each system. So you're going to have to factor in upgrading your lenses also to the full frame lenses, which again are far more expensive, and you're possibly talking another £1,000-ish just to get a good all-round lens for this camera, as there's no point in spending the best part of £4,000 on a camera just to put a cheap bit of glass in front of it. The image quality is only going to be as good as the glass that's in front of it, so that's really where you want to invest your money, is on a good lens. So those are the pros and cons of the Sony A7S3. Now if you've got that kind of money to spend and you're considering spending it on the camera, I have made a list of alternative things that you can buy instead that will get you a fully fledged operation that is going to have lighting, sound, cameras, all the extra stuff that you're going to need to get up and running, and actually probably be able to run a small filmmaking business, whether that's weddings, corporate, or just getting your YouTube set up in full. Here's a list of things that you could get instead. So I've made some notes, and at the top we've got cameras, and I'm thinking either the Canon C100 or the Canon C300. You can pick those up second hand. Now these are cinema cameras. They don't shoot 4K, but 1080p is absolutely fine for YouTube, and they do shoot from a 4K sensor down sample to 1080, so the 1080 file that you get is actually really high quality and it is easy to work with in post-production, and that is a massive thing if you are going to be working with lots of these files. So with the Canon C100, 300 range of cameras, you have a lot of extra benefits that you don't get with a standard SLR. For example, they've got XLR inputs built in, they've got built-in ND filters, which is another expense that you won't have to buy additionally for your lens, and that works regardless of what lens you have on the camera because it's built into the camera itself. So picking up one of these cameras second hand is going to set you back about £1,600, which is not a bad price considering all the benefits you get with a cinema camera. Cinema cameras typically run off of much larger batteries, allowing you to run for longer all day, and they don't have a capped recording time like some of the other cameras do. Moving on from cameras, we've got lighting to consider, and I personally use the Godox SL60 with a softbox. Picking up one of these, £124. You can have two of these for £248. Moving on to audio, if you picked up the Canon C100 range, you want to make the most of those XLR inputs, and to do that you want to get a microphone that accepts an XLR cable. So you could get something like the Rode NTG3, which will set you back, the NTG4, which will set you back £193, but that is going to give you guaranteed high quality audio baked right into your video file, instead of having to use an external recorder or something like that to get better audio. Now, if you didn't want to go down the Canon Cinema line, you could pick up a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema, and that would give you the option of 4K and slow motion filming options. Picking one of these up first hand, you're talking about £1,600, second hand between £1,000 £1,200. For editing these files and recording media from the Blackmagic, you're going to want a portable SSD drive. You can pick up the standard Samsung SSD T5 for around £130. So when I mentioned the Canon Cinema camera not shooting 1080p and being limited somewhat to its options for filming, you can expand on that and get access to 422 10-bit recording if you use an external monitor such as the Atomos Ninja 5, and that is going to set you back about £680, and that will also let you monitor your footage and give you access to waveforms, zebras, focus peaking, all that sort of thing that comes with external monitors. Again, on the audio side, you might want to pick up some lavalier microphones. We've got wireless lav mics from Tascam, the Tascam DR10L, which is about £210. This is ideal for weddings. You can pick up a couple of these, and even if you just wanted to film something or film yourself further away from the camera where your microphone on the camera is not going to reach, you could rely on a Tascam DR10 lav mic to get you good quality regardless of your distance to the camera. Now, if you pick up any kind of video camera, especially one in this price range, you're going to want a good sturdy video tripod and a fluid head to rest that on. That's going to give you smooth motion when you're tilting and panning the camera, and a good quality heavy duty tripod is going to set you back £150 with the head. If you want to take your videos to the next level or just want to add an extra element, you might want to incorporate drone footage. Within this budget, you can also add a drone, and I'm thinking about the DJI Mavic Mini, which will set you back about £354, and that shoots 4K and is going to give you perfectly adequate footage for vlogs, weddings, any kind of video work you might have. The DJI Mavic Mini will do just fine. One of the extra things you might want to consider, because the cinema cameras and the Blackmagics don't have built-in stabilisation, so you might want to buy a gimbal. A DJI Ronin S will set you back about £350 as well, and that's just going to give you buttery smooth footage. So you can get all of that for the price of one Sony A7siii body only. That is a full production company for the price of one camera. Worth thinking about if you were in the market for the Sony A7siii. So there you have it. Those are my thoughts on the Sony A7siii camera. It is no doubt an absolutely fantastic piece of kit and is going to be an invaluable tool for a lot of people. However, for that kind of money, as I've outlined, there are a lot of things that you could purchase instead and still have extremely high quality videos, plus the lighting, the sound, the gimbal, the drone, everything you could possibly need to run a video production for the price of that camera. So that's it. My name is Andy. Thank you for watching. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing or leaving a like if this has been at all useful for you, and I will see you in the next one.